From epilepsy patient to top entrepreneur, Stacey Chillemi's story is nothing short of extraordinary. Discover how she turned her personal health struggles into a mission to help millions through best-selling books and a thriving wellness empire. In this episode, Stacey reveals her secrets to becoming a sought-after podcast guest and gives you strategies on how to grow your influence. Learn how to craft pitches, choose the right shows, and leave a lasting impression that will have hosts clamoring to book you again. Whether you're an aspiring influencer or a seasoned pro, Stacey's insights can help revolutionize your approach to podcast guesting and help skyrocket your reach. Hello, incurable creators. I'm excited to bring you some bonus episodes featuring exclusive interviews from the 2023 PodUp Virtual Podcasting Summit. Each Thursday for months, you're going to hear interviews from a diverse range of podcasting and marketing experts. My hope is these repurposed interviews will inspire you with new ideas and insights to take your podcast to the next level. And of course, remember to listen every Tuesday for our regular episodes of Podcasting Secrets as well. Now, let's dive into today's bonus interview from PodUp's 2013 Podcasting Summit. Hello, I'm Nathan Gwilliam, the CEO of PodUp and your host for the Podcasting Summit. And in this interview, I'm joined with Coach Stacey Chillemi. Thanks for joining us, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan.
So Stacey is one of the top 10 entrepreneurs in 2023 as selected by Apple News. She had one article that recently hit 17 million views. She's written more than 20 best-selling books and operates one of the top 10 health and wellness websites. She's been on the Dr. Oz show 5 times. And just as a couple examples of the books she's written, she's done The Complete Guide to Natural Healing and Natural Remedies for Common Conditions. So this is a big-time influencer that we have sharing some of her secrets with us today. And we're going to specifically focus on how to grow by being a guest on other people's podcasts. So Stacey, can you start off by just sharing your story, your journey to become an influencer and podcaster?
So I'll briefly go into how it all began. At 5, I had a little virus and an ear infection. My parents heard a gurgling sound. My mother came in to check on me. I was turning blue and I was in a grand mal seizure. My mother had rushed me to the hospital and they found out that the virus I had traveled to my brain and caused encephalitis. I went into a coma for about 4 days. They didn't know if I was going to come out of it okay. They told my parents most likely they thought if I came out of it, I would be paraplegic or I would have severe brain damage. So my father, who was from a small town in Greece, and there used to be a little statue by the church where tears came down its eyes, he prayed to that statue and he kept asking that I would be okay. And when he looked up, a teardrop rolled from my eyes and I woke up and I asked for McDonald's French fries. And I wasn't paraplegic and I didn't have brain damage, but I did have epilepsy. So growing up, it was really like a roller coaster ride. And I went through a lot. And in college, I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to make it or not. So I wrote an article and I sent it into the Epilepsy Foundation where they have a magazine. And 300 to 400 people wrote back to me and they told me their stories. And they told me how they survived and how they coped with it. And I was inspired. And I realized for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. And I used those letters and to create my own regimen, how I was going to live life and how I was going to take care of myself. That got me through college and that got me through a good portion of my life. And I started working in the city. I had a big corporate job and I was doing really well. And then one day I felt a seizure coming on. And I fell to the ground and unfortunately, an executive saw me have a seizure and I had lost my job from that. So I had spoken to someone. They had sent me to Washington to speak in front of Congress. I met some political figures there and they were really emotionally, touched by my story. And then I happened to meet an herbalist. And this herbalist, he said, you know what? I need somebody to do research. And, I thought to myself, I'm never going to let what happened get to me. I'm going to be a success no matter what. And so I took on the job of researching and writing and learning about herbals and natural healing and holistic living. And I said, wow, a lot of this stuff could help me. And I applied it to my own life. And my seizures went from 12 to 9 to 8, 7, 6, 5 to the point where it got controlled. And I created a book called Epilepsy, You're Not Alone. And I wanted to help others because back then there weren't a lot of books on epilepsy. That book became a bestseller. And then I took 5 more years to research my own research, and I created the Complete Herbal Guide, Natural Healing book. And it was about 600 pages. And then I created another book on different conditions. And I kept going and going and going. And with that, that's how my career, really began. And then one day I got an email and someone said, I found your book in Barnes and Nobles and I was on the verge of suicide. And I read your book and I followed your regimen and you saved my life. And that was really when I realized how strong the words of wisdom can really be, how the words that we use could really affect somebody's lives. And that's when I really learned that no, maybe, the path that way I was taking, the journey I was going on was not the right one. And I really realized that this is my purpose, is to help others. And that's the journey I went on. And for over 25 years, I've been on that journey, helping other people.
Well, first of all, I love the story you shared about your father and how he prayed. And I believe God answers prayers, and especially the prayers of a parent for a child that needs help. So I love the story that you shared about your challenge, the epilepsy that you dealt with, and the journey that took you on, and how that helped you find your mission, your calling from God, and how you could change the world. And I had a similar situation in my life, not with a health challenge, but challenge as a child that then made me sensitive to the needs of abandoned children and neglected children. And then I was a missionary in Brazil for a couple of years, and I just fell in love with these street children that I saw. And I vowed when I got back that I was going to do something to make a lasting difference in the life of these kids. And I ended up creating adoption.com, which became the world's most used adoption website. And I was able to spend decades of my life helping children be adopted. So sometimes God gives us challenges so that we will be sensitive to and have the passion for where He needs us to change the world. And it sounds like that is what happened to you.
Yes, it was. It truly was.
So you started with books. You created your books and you established expertise by writing about these health topics. Can you talk to us about the next step? Once you had the book and you had some expertise, how did you go from there to building this digital and media brand, to having a podcast and a website and all of these other things that you operate with your platform?
So I got to a point in my life where I kept writing articles. People were finding me and thanking me. And sometimes you get to a point in life where you know that you're ready for the next step. And something inside me said, you're ready, Stacey, take the next step. And the one thing I always loved doing was speaking and interacting with people. When I got on stage and I would do speaking events, the room would get quiet. People would just really listen and really take in what I was saying. Afterwards, people would come over to me, thank me, hug me, kiss me. And I would really, feel such a feeling of achievement and such a great feeling of gratitude and just being able to help another person. The words can't even describe. So I really focused on being able to do speaking events. And I knew that I wanted to do speaking events and I wanted to coach people on, and I wanted to help others get to the point where I was in life. And so I really focused on that. And then one day, a good friend of mine who had a podcast, and that was from the Mike Wagner show, he said to me, Stacey, you got to do a podcast. He goes, your work is outstanding. Let the world be known, And I thought about that. And I said, you know what? Our world is not the same world that we had before. People don't really listen to the radio anymore. I was always constantly changing my marketing because the world was going more digital. Well, the world is not really stuck on the regular TV channels anymore. People are not stuck on the radio anymore. People are listening to all these other stations like Hulu and all these other things. And when it comes to radio, people are listening to podcasts. Podcast is now the new thing. And because I love speaking so much and because I had such a powerful message and ways to help people, I felt like, you know what? My voice needs to be heard and I need to get people that have expertise on my podcast so they can share their knowledge and help others. Because in life, you always learn from others. If you think you know it all, then that means you know nothing. And if you are open to what others have to say and you're eager to want to learn, that shows, a sense of credibility, growth. It shows that you are a person who wants to establish yourself and get to the next level. And I love having people on my podcast because I have people from all different walks of life, doctors, coaches, teachers, and they have such a way of teaching people from about all different aspects of life. And people will learn so much from listening to my podcast. And it makes me feel good that I'm helping other people. That's how I got into it. And then it just kept growing. And so people were really taking in what I had to share.
Which did you do first? Were you a podcaster of your own show first, or were you a guest on other people's shows first?
I began becoming a guest on other people's shows first. That's how I got more recognized, was people were finding me on the internet. People were seeing my writing. People were hearing me on videos, and people were asking me to come on and speak either on their podcasts or on their summits. And I would go on and they would have a topic and they would ask me questions and I would answer them. And people really, they saw my passion. They saw my motivation, and they saw that, I was sincere. And more podcasters would, find me on different social platforms and say, will you speak at my podcast? Will you speak at my podcast? And before I knew it, I was doing a lot of speaking at a lot of different podcasts. And that's how it all began. I got my name out there and I started growing by being on other people's podcasts first.
What made you decide to go from being on other people's podcasts to having your own podcast?
Because I had such a powerful message. And, I always wanted to have a podcast, but I didn't realize, I was kind of a little fearful, I'll be honest, because it's a lot of work that goes into having a podcast. And I didn't really know at that time a lot of how to begin and what to do. And my good friend, Mike Wagner, he kind of showed me the ropes. And I started my podcast, and then I learned from my mistakes, and I kept fixing and tweaking, and that helped me to grow and grow and grow and grow. And before I knew it, my podcast blew up to almost 1 million views on a monthly basis.
Let's go back and talk about this strategy and the topic of this episode of being a guest on other people's podcasts. So what inspired you to explore the strategy of guesting on other people's podcasts as a way to grow your reach, your influence?
Well, people were approaching me and they were asking me to come on their podcast. And I was realizing that nobody was really listening to radio anymore. Nobody was listening really that much to regular TV. People kept talking about how they love to, listen to podcasts when they went to work or when they came home. I would hear people saying, "Oh, when I jog, I always, I download a couple of podcasts. When I'm on a plane, I download podcasts." So, after being on all these podcasts and thinking to myself, what a powerful message I can, share with the world, I decided to do my own podcast. And before I knew it, because of all the credibility I had and how visible I was on the social network, you just type my name and pages of things come up. People started signing up for my podcast right away. They wanted to be on the show. They wanted to share because they wanted to be heard, because I did such a great job promoting myself. They wanted to be able to share their message because they had such a powerful message. And they wanted to help people just like I did. And those are the type of people I like to have on my podcast. I always make sure I have people on my podcast that want to make a difference and will do something to benefit the listeners.
Okay, so for other podcasters that want to get interviewed on more shows, what can they do to get invited on other shows? They can write a book like you did. They can write articles on other publications. They can launch their own show and make themselves credible. Any other suggestions? I mean, they can speak at industry trade shows. Do you have any other suggestions of what they can do to get invited on other podcasts?
Sure. I created a pitch. I created basically a sales pitch and what I did is I introduced myself And I explained my purpose, what I do, why I do it. And I explained, the benefits that, people will receive from it. And then then I showed on towards the bottom of the letter, I explained all my credibility and my authority in that things that I've done already and how I've been recognized. And I asked to be on their podcast. And I would go out and I would look at for podcasts that fit me. And I would send the people who were the podcast host or the people who did the appointment setting. I would send them the letter, and I would have in the subject line, request to be on your show. And I would send that letter out to each individual person that I wanted to be on their podcast. And I would get a lot of responses back. And then, I went on, there was a website called Radio Podcast List. And in the beginning, I started out looking, they had a list of podcasts, people looking for guests. And I looked and then I researched the podcast. And if it fit what I was doing and it was a good podcast, I would send them a letter because they had the contact. Or I would just go online and I would Google self-help, podcasts, and a whole list of different self-help podcasts came up. And then I would find out who the contact was. And then I would email that contact and I would just keep emailing them. And then LinkedIn, I went on LinkedIn and did the same thing. I looked for a podcast, people who were podcasters. And I introduced myself and I said, I'd really like to be on your show. And, you could look at my LinkedIn page. I think I could really, deliver a powerful message. And they would go on my page and then they would say, we'd love to have you on the show. And so those are things I did. I kind of headhunted in a sense. I went out there because you can't expect people always to come to you. If you really have a passion and if you really want to be on other people's podcasts, you have to put yourself out there. People are not going to, you're a pea in the pod. If you really want to get noticed, you have to go out there and make the connections. And, and before you know it, your referrals, you'll get referrals from other people, and you will get kind of like a snowball effect. And then people will start coming to you. But you really have to put yourself out there, get connections, and show people what you're worth, because everybody has a story. Everybody is special, and everybody could help somebody in some way.
I love that you created that letter. You found them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an extremely effective way to do that, and reached out to them on lists that you were able to find online. Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is sponsored by PodUp, the ultimate podcasting platform. As podcasters, we're always looking for ways to simplify our workflows, grow our reach, and make more money. What if I told you that there's a tool that combines more than 35 essential podcasting features into one platform? That's exactly what PodUp offers. And it's transforming how we create, grow, monetize, publish, syndicate, and do so many other things with our podcasting content. From recording and editing to website building and audience engagement, PodUp covers virtually the entire podcasting process. What sets PodUp apart is its focus on growth and monetization. The platform includes AI-powered features that help you save time on tasks like creating short video clips and transcribing episodes. It also offers tools for guest management, content syndication, and email list building, all accessible from one centralized dashboard. For those of you looking to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, PodUp provides integrated monetization tools that help you market products, courses, and services directly to your audience. What's even better is that with PodUp, you don't have to waste time and money switching between multiple softwares to produce your podcast. With PodUp, you get all 35 modules within one fully integrated platform and for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in simplifying your podcast workflow while expanding your reach and making some money while you're at it, check out podup.com. That's PODUP.com and get a free trial of the software. Now, back to the show. What factors do you consider when choosing the right podcast for you to be a guest on? And you've got to have the same audience as you, probably.
Yes, I have to have the same audience. I have to make sure that the people are somebody, that this podcast has the same type of message that I'm trying to deliver, because that's the audience I want to speak to. I also look to see how well the podcast is doing. If I'm going to devote, a certain amount of time, I want to make sure that, the podcast has a good amount of people that I could deliver the message to. And I look for, credibility. Who is this person? Does the podcaster have a good name? Are they credible? And those are some of the things I look for.
Okay, so when you're invited on a show and you agree and you show up, what steps do you take to prepare yourself for these guest appearances?
To be honest with you, when I do speaking events on podcasts, I do the best when I'm just talking to the person naturally. I don't, I will prepare by, going over what the podcast is about, what their goals are, what they are trying to accomplish, and, the topic they'd like me to focus on. But I won't go there and memorize a script, because to me, I feel being natural is the best way to go. And people want to see real. People don't like when things are so scripted. If you sound perfect, then it doesn't sound authentic. If you just speaking from the heart and you're passionate about what you're speaking, it's going to come to you. I believe that, our thoughts come through our heart, and we just verbalize them through verbally through our mouths. And, you just have to let it flow. I like to just, speak with someone, and, it just comes, it just comes.
How often do you tailor your message to the unique audience of that show where you're a guest, and any tips on how to tailor that message for the audience?
Well, I think you have to have a purpose. First of all, why are you going on that show in the first place? What message do you want to get across to those listeners? What is your main goal? What is your niche? The smaller niche you have, the more successful you'll be. So, you look at the audience and say, now, how can I benefit that audience? What message am I trying to get across? And then, think about bullet points, things that you could actually do when you're on that show. First you want to give them an introduction, and then you want to, talk to them about the first step they need to do, then the second step, then the third step, and then, let's say the fourth step, and then go into a closing and give them tips, and go, that will kind of go over everything you just talked about and make it simplistic. People don't want to, everyone in this world now wants short and quick. So you don't want to go on like a broken record and be repetitive. You want to go, boom, 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 and boom. And this is how you do it. And remember, you got to do this, this, and this. And if you want to, and then close it with some way that you can offer your help to that person. If they like who you are, they like what you have to say, and they think you're beneficial and you could be a benefit in their life, give them opportunity to contact you. So you could maybe possibly converse with that person, talk to that person, and maybe help that person grow, because we do this for a reason, to help others. So, staying in contact with the people who are listening to you is important. Our goal is not to become popular, but to help people. And that's what people have to realize. Some people, they want the glam, but really, is that what, the real reason you go into in this field is to help people. So the goal is to reach out towards the end and say, this is who I am. This is how you can reach me. I want to help you. How can I help you? And put it out to them and make them feel comfortable enough where they can come back and ask for that help.
You're trying to help. You're trying to provide value. How do you do an episode that provides value and is impactful so that you can leave a lasting impression and get invited on other shows?
So when I go to the show, on a show, I like to bring up points from my own life and explain to, I'm a person too. I've gone through this, but it's not about me. It's about them. I basically like to explain when I go on a show, like we did in the beginning. I explained, how I got from point A to point B and how it brought me to one journey. And then, I went on, and I didn't give up. Anytime an obstacle went my way, I fought. Every time I got knocked down, I got back up. And I always consistently set goals. Goal setting is very important. First you have to realize too, number one, you have to accept who you are. And number two, you have to love yourself. And if you accept yourself for who you are and you love yourself, you're going to build self-esteem. With self-esteem and and have self-assurance, you will feel empowered. If you feel empowered, you're going to feel like you can conquer the world. Now, I have a purpose. What is my purpose? You write down that purpose. My niche. So for me, I want to help people reduce stress. I want to help people reach their true potential in life. That's my niche, for example. And then from there on, I set short-term goals and long-term goals. How am I going to do that? And I set those goals. And each day I set goals to accomplish that are going to get me closer and closer to my actual goal, that big goal that I have set in my head. And then, I keep everything written on a paper, a journal. And every day I set things I want to get accomplished and I write down the things I got accomplished. And then I take time to renew myself and reward myself. You can't keep, chugging and chugging and chugging and chugging and chugging. You have to also give yourself time to stop and renew yourself and take time to reward yourself, because that will lead to burnout. Because when we're trying to achieve and go on shows and get noticed and teach people and help people, every time you verbalize and you're talking, you're getting yourself drained. So you have to take time to renew yourself. And then you start up and you say, well, okay, where did I leave off? And you start and you keep going. And it's a step-by-step process. And, over time you will get where you want to go. And, you have to really listen to your inner self, and make sure you're happy in the direction that you're going. And you will know that if you're going in the right direction. Also, everything takes time. A lot of people in our world are impatient. They want results right away. It doesn't happen like that. It's a lot of hard work. Getting on shows is not always easy. You're going to get rejections, but you have to have thick skin. You might not, it's not because they don't like you. You might not just be a fit for that show. So you keep trying and you keep trying, or you might send out pitches and pitches, no one's answering you back. Well, you keep trying and you keep Googling and you keep looking and find it and find it. And eventually you'll get on more shows. Eventually, on the side, you do the things I told you and do it, making those goals, achieving things, go and getting on those shows. Things will start to snowball eventually, and your business and your goals and what you're trying to achieve will grow.
I know that relationships with the hosts of the shows where you're a guest are critical for you to be able to be invited back or be referred. How do you build better relationships with the hosts of the shows where you're a guest?
You have to be friendly. You have to kind of understand the person when you're talking to them, get a feel for the person's personality and be honest and be open. When people see that you're sincere and you're honest and you're open, you're friendly, people value that, and be respectful. And, respect is a big thing, and having gratitude, being gracious that they even invited you on the show. Don't come on with a big ego thinking like, oh, you're lucky to have me. No, 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 no. You're lucky that that person was gracious enough to have you on their show. And so you treat them with respect and you treat them with gratitude and you thank them. You have to really be, real, and if you have a high ego, then it's time to maybe reevaluate yourself and take yourself down a notch, because people that have those big egos and think they're all that are the people who are probably going to struggle the most and have the most difficulty. It's about being real, being thankful and gracious and being positive. If you are a negative person, a person can feel that on the other side. Nobody likes negativity. It drains you. So if you come on and you're like, oh, people, that host is going to say, I don't want that person back on this show. If you come on, you're happy, you're sincere, you're respectful towards that person, you have gratitude and you're thankful for being on the show. And, and you find one or two things that you have in common with the host, and you can talk in a natural conversation. You've made a connection right there, and you never know where that connection could lead to.
I know the guests that I've had on my show, one of the best ways I've felt gratitude from them and respect from them is as they've shared the episode or they've commented on the episode, as they try to bring promotion back for my show with their episode. That just really helped me feel that gratitude. Okay. Can you share with me any of the challenges you've faced or mistakes that you've made as a guest on other podcasts, and maybe how you've overcome those?
Well, I've learned in the past that, always been a talker. I get excited. I start yipping, yapping and talking in the way, and it's not because I'm trying to override the person. It's just like, I have so many things I want to share with that person. And sometimes I could, not on purpose, but I could overtalk myself. And so I've learned over the years, to try to be a listener not a talker, you know? So I give the host the chance to ask their questions, and I answer and I talk, but I try to also be a better listener.
Okay, Stacey, if our audience has enjoyed this interview like I have, and they want to learn more about your products and services and your show and all these amazing things you do, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Well, they can find me on staceychillemi.com, and that's STACEYCHILLEMI.com. They can find me on LinkedIn or any of the social platforms. I'm giving away right now for anybody who wants to do accountability coaching. I'm giving a 30-minute accountability coaching call for free. So if they'd like to meet me and talk to me and see how they could actually reach their potential, I'm willing to spend 30 minutes and try to listen to what their needs are and see if I could help them grow the way they want to grow. And, those are the best ways to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. A lot of people find me on LinkedIn and message me on LinkedIn. And I'm on all the social platforms. And, feel free to, email me. And I always return, my emails.
Our listeners and watchers have not done accountability coaching. That is one of the surest ways to increase your success. I've done it before, and it's made a huge difference in helping me achieve those goals that I've set. So for everything from weight loss to running a podcast to running a business, accountability coaches can help you do what you say you're going to do and take your goals that are kind of just wishes and help them turn them into reality. And to those of you that are watching or listening, if you have not yet taken advantage of the VIP Summit upgrade, I encourage you to click on the button that's below this video, and you can see all the cool features. You can get a free 30-day trial of the PodUp software. You can get a free 7-day challenge on how to start a podcast and a lot of other cool stuff for free. So please check that out. And thank you for joining us for this interview. I wish you success as you work to grow your podcast by being a guest on other people's podcasts. Here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, personal challenges can help lead to finding your life's purpose. Stacey's experience with epilepsy led her to become an advocate for health and wellness. Number 2, writing and sharing your story can be a powerful way to connect with others and build credibility in your field. Number 3, transitioning from traditional media to digital platforms like podcasts can help you reach a wider audience in today's changing media landscape. Number 4, being a guest on other people's podcasts is an effective strategy for growing your influence and reach before starting your own show. Number 5, create a compelling pitch letter that introduces yourself, explains your purpose, and highlights your credibility when reaching out to podcast hosts. Number 6, use resources like LinkedIn, podcast directories, and Google searches to find relevant podcasts and connect with hosts. Number 7, when appearing as a guest, speak naturally and from the heart rather than using scripted responses for more authentic connection with the audience. Number 8, tailor your message to the show's audience by focusing on the niche of that show and providing clear, actionable steps for the listeners. Number 9, build relationships with podcast hosts by being friendly, respectful, and showing genuine gratitude for the opportunity to appear on their show. And finally, number 10, continuous goal setting, self-reflection, and personal growth are crucial for long-term success in podcasting and building an influential brand. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Podcasting Secrets. I wish you success as you strive to improve your podcast guesting strategies. And if you're looking for a great podcasting platform, I recommend you check out PodUp, where you can find 35 integrated modules to help create, grow, and monetize your podcast. You can get a free trial at podup.com.